on the go. So hello again, good morning and good afternoon. And I don't think I have any good evenings today, but that being said, nice Thursday, sad day as well. So let's maybe just reflect on what's going on overseas in the Ukraine for a second and send our thoughts with the folks of the Ukraine, no matter, what your thoughts are on it. War is never good. And we have a thought for them as well. We have some good friends in the Ukraine, so we're thinking of them today. That being said, we're not here to talk politics. We are here to talk blockchain, and we're happy you could join us today. Today we have a few guests with us. We have Ray Garreau, who is the manager of supply chain systems at the Federated Co-op, a nice Canadian company. A lot of folks know as well. They do. Well, I'll let Ray explain what they do. And we have both Carl and Noam, who are from Morpheus.Network, another good friends of the association here. Been a long time collaborators with us, so we're happy to have everyone on the call today, discussing blockchain for supply chain and blockchain for food security. Just before we go, let me share my screen for about 10 seconds and kick this off without boring you with the entire screen that I have here. Just run you through quickly what the association is about. Of course, my slide was not on the right one. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen now. And so a bit about us. We are the Canadian Blockchain Supply Chain Association. We are a member-driven association of supply chain and blockchain enthusiasts that kind of want to discuss improvements around the supply chain industry. We do three things at the association. We do some advocacy work. So we talk with our governments and governing bodies, folks that impact supply chain directly, folks like customs and food inspection company or food inspection agencies, healthcare inspection agencies here in Canada, right? CFIA, Transport Canada, you name it, any government department that would impact your supply chain. We listen to their priorities, bring that down to our members, and we take our members' views and opinions and bring that up to government so that they can listen to industry. We also work very religiously and very intensely on standards globally. The CBSCA and the BSCA are members of the Standard Council of Canada. We had a nice workshop a few weeks ago, almost a month ago. A member of ISO as well. So we help to develop policy and we help to develop standards. Also, around collaboration, we work on very specific projects. We help our members, we find resources, we introduce our members to each other as they need, and we continue to develop projects in a very neutral way from the association standpoint for our members. And of course, on the education side, we do webinars like this. Still a lot of misconceptions around blockchain in your supply chain. I will say it one more time. Bitcoin is not blockchain. It's not about just the Bitcoins. So we do a lot of webinars like this and newsletters, and we're about to launch our first micro-credential in association with CITT, which is a course to understand blockchain in logistics. So we're about to launch that in a couple of weeks as well. So we represent, again, government, industry, other associations and academics, logistics world, trade, finance, all the people moving money around, and of course the technology people. And we bring all these folks into conversation, into a community. A few things about benefits, again, webinars, symposiums, workshops, education, we bring it all. I'm not here to kind of take the stage for our guests, but we've been having so much fun that we're opening a global chapters. We now have a chapter in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, India, South America, the USA, and just as of a few weeks ago in North Africa. So we are growing. We hope you can join the community. And that's my speech for today. I will stop my share and hand over the screen and the microphone to our guests today. Carl, I believe you're off first, right?
Yep. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
We can, thank you.
Great. So should we just do some quick introductions?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I'll introduce myself quickly, and then I'll hand it over to Noam and then Ray. So yeah, I'm Carl Mcdermott. I run global business development for Morpheus.Network. We also have Noam Eppel, one of the co-founders on this call. We've been working in this particular project around something that's very dear to our heart, so the Safe Food for Canadians regulations, and we'd love to share, some of the experiences we've had working with Federated Co-op and Morpheus.Network and implementing blockchain solutions for compliance and also for helping the supply chain. So a little bit of my background, been 30 years working in enterprise software, in strategy and innovation, and the last 10 years in supply chain. And with that, I'll hand it over to Noam.
Thank you, Carl. Noam Eppel, located just outside of Toronto, Canada. My background's on the tech side, so I have over 25 years of experience as a full stack web developer, very active in information security as well, very active in the blockchain space as co-founder and COO of Morpheus.Network. I'm also a part-time professor teaching part of the blockchain course at George Brown College in Toronto. Very active with the Crypto Defenders Alliance, which I believe is one of the largest crypto security group out there. And with that brief intro, I will pass it on to Ray.
Hey, I'm Ray Garreau. I'm the supply chain systems manager at Federated Co-op. I live right close to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. If I told you the name of the town I lived in, no one would get it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah.
Right. So again, thanks, Eric, for the invitation today to speak to your audience. We really want to have this as a collaborative session. We're leaving 15 minutes at the end, really, to have a Q&A session. And with further ado, I'm just going to get straight into the presentation. So the first thing we'll just mention very briefly is the agro-food value chain. And what we've seen historically, there's massive pain points and high operating costs. You can see here there's a value chain that goes from seeds, feeds, and fertilizers, the outputs of primary farming, whether that's like protein, whether it's fresh fruit and vegetables, or consumer packaged goods, the transport and warehouse elements, the processing and packaging, and then obviously into the retail network to doing wholesale distribution, and then finally consumer and e-commerce. And that's really the panorama we have. So, we're quite well versed in this value chain. We have a lot of customers in all of these segments, from the retail all the way working back to, consumer packaged goods companies, Fortune 100 beverage companies, down to the primary outputs of farming. So what I really want to do then is to give the floor back to Ray, who's going to walk us through a little bit about Federated Co-op and the approach that they're having to implementing safe food for Canadians, and also then supply chain visibility and traceability. Right?
Yeah, thanks. So Federated Co-op, for those who don't know, we're a wholesaling manufacturing company that supports a whole bunch of locations, retails around Western Canada and a couple in Ontario. Right now we have about 1,500 plus locations, and our home office is situated in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Could we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
So we have quite a bit of people working for FCL, and we serve up to 25,000 retail co-op employees. And the thing with Federated, we're not just doing the wholesaling and warehousing, and we deal with feed plants, we deal with propane centers, we have lumber yards, we deal with food, energy, and it goes on and on and on. Yeah, and we own our own refinery in Regina as well, so we deliver fuel across Western Canada as well for different locations. And Federated just went into a couple of different areas recently, so they're continuing to grow and grow and grow. Let's go to the next slide. So SCL is actually owned by the local co-ops, which makes us a little different. So we can't just tell the co-ops, hey, use our software. This is what you have to use. So we have to make it beneficial to them to actually want to use our software. So we have to make it as, we have to make it beneficial for everyone. And then the member owners actually own the local co-ops as well. So it's kind of a big circle, because if I'm a member, I own the co-ops, but I work at Federated, so I have to go through the whole loop, and makes it a little tricky to make everything work smoothly because every store is unique, especially urban versus rural, large versus small. Like you have some stores that might hold hardware, might have feed, might have food. They'll have a little bit of everything. So they need a wide variety of different POS systems and supply chain needs and so on, so on. So it's I guess that's all I have to say on this slide here. This slide's a little out of date because we started adding a couple more different areas like lumber. We just opened liquor outlets about 2 years ago, and we're already over 118. I think that number's up to 130 now. And the lumber yard that we opened up, we're growing pretty quick in that area, especially with the demand in the last couple years. And food stores, we have 289. There's pharmacies included in over 60 of them. We have home store centers, gas bars, C-stores, agro centers, and commercial card locks. And the nice thing is, a lot of these are in rural communities, these card locks, so that we could actually support local farmers, and they don't have to go into towns and stuff like that, or major city centers, or even deliver their fuel. They could just go fill up their combines at the card locks for a lot of them, or they get their fuel truck and bring it over, and so on. And the last couple of years, I guess I could say, a lot of the smaller co-ops, they've been merging, amalgamating with other larger co-ops. So it's making it a little simpler to keep track of all the different areas. But the nice thing is those larger co-ops aren't closing down the rural areas. They're keeping them open and just helping them out to make sure that there's support in rural communities. Okay, next slide. And with this here, Carl, did you want to start going through this, or do you want me to continue?
Can you continue for another couple of slides, then we'll hand over to Noam.
For sure. Okay, so food certs, we had a problem where co-op was actually having paper documents for everything, and we would send these out, and we would get them from vendors, and they'd get stored in a binder somewhere where somebody has it over his shelf at his desk. And through the years, like they got lost and they couldn't keep track of it, and things weren't really accurate anymore. So then the government came in with this regulation, and we were getting audited in our warehouse, and we had to make sure that we had all these certificates available for all the vendors that we were purchasing products from. And going through this whole solution with paper-based, but it took forever. So we got a hold of Noam. Actually, I think the first time I talked to him, I introduced this problem where we need to have this Safe Food for Canadians Act, and we have to make sure that we have all these certificates available at a drop of a hat. So during the audit never actually happened because COVID hit, but we still had to come up with a solution and prove that we had available resources to come up with all these certificates. And so the next one here, what we had to do is import the licensing for like the Safe Food for Canada, CFIA, create preventive control plan to identify and control risks. There is a whole bunch of different things that we had to check. And then traceability was another one that we were talking about to identify food items with labels and lock codes or other unique identifiers, to trace food one step back and one step forward. That's another project that we're kind of looking at right now. So right here for the food safety managers and the rules and regulations, we're always moving. So like we had to, what the solution allowed us to do is digitize this whole product and put everything on the blockchain, and then we could actually manage these documents a lot cleaner. We wouldn't lose them and so on. But the solution can actually go right directly to these websites and validate against vendors that are certified with all these different areas. And I mentioned that here, like all the manual documents and stuff like that, where we had them stored on someone's desk, and eventually it just got too big and couldn't keep track of it. And we didn't know if they were actually valid anymore because we have to resend these documents on a yearly basis, and they have to continue to validate that they're following our regulations to make sure that we could purchase from them. So that just created bottlenecks, delays, and just you get a lot of documents lost in emails and so on.
Okay, thanks for the description there, Ray, of that particular requirement. I'd like to pass this over now to Noam, who will walk us through the solution. So let's just swap. Noam, did you want to present your screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ray. And I will point out that Carl is doing this presentation today while at the same time battling COVID. So Carl, thanks so much for doing this great job as always. I believe I have 10 minutes, so I'll try and cover as much as I can within 10 minutes. As Ray mentioned, this story really begins with the Safe Food for Canadians Act, which helps Canadians be confident in the food that they eat is safe and is what they expect. Ray spoke a lot about the challenges there, having to reach out to all the FCL suppliers and collect documents and certifications. And he spoke about how that was a manual process, very resource intensive and error prone. So Morpheus.Network, what we do is we like to solve supply chain challenges. And we like to do that by leveraging breakthrough technologies such as blockchain, IoT, OCR, machine learning, and on and on. One thing we do well, though, is as a company, we put a tremendous amount of focus on UI, UX, the user interface, the user experience, so that these technologies are easy to adopt and very, very approachable. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen and I'll walk you through what we call the Food Certs platform.
And while we're going through the presentation, don't be shy, people. If you've got some questions, please post them to the chat. We really want this to be a dialogue between all the people on the call rather than us just presenting. Thanks. Yes, absolutely. So you should be able to see my screen now. So this is what we call the Food Certs platform. It's hosted, it's web-based. And this platform, we brand it. So it's in the FCL colors and images and fonts. And so right now I'm logged in here to the dev platform, and I'm logged in as an administrator, meaning as one of the FCL admins. And the first thing they see when they log in is a dashboard. So right now for this webinar, it's all sample data, of course, but this dashboard gives them key insights into the metrics and KPIs that they wish to track. On the left-hand side, we have the menu. I'm going to click on suppliers. So all the FCL suppliers are in the system. Very, very user-friendly. Everything can be dragged and dropped. Very, very quick to search. The interface can be fully customized. And so let's go ahead and create a new supplier. So adding a new supplier is very, very easy. Put in the supplier name, reference number, contact, email, phone, all the typical stuff you would add.
And let's look at one of these sample suppliers here called Apple Farms. So we provide them with a great interface so that they can manage the supplier, find all the information, quickly find food safety contacts, and see a number of questions each supplier needs to answer, and all the certificates they've uploaded. On the right-hand side, we have some quick areas for notes, as well as we track all activities. So we can track every time the supplier logs in or updates a document. So let's go back to that supplier interface here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to request some certificates. So our platform has a number of different certificates, leafy greens, organic USCA, MyGFSI. So I can go ahead and select the certificates that we want to request from this supplier. And apologies if I'm going fast. I'm trying to jam in a lot into a few minutes here. But I'll select a couple certificates, and basically I'll save those changes. And then what that does is it sends a email directly to that supplier with a list of the certificates that they need to upload. And it's very easy for them. It's one click to for them, one button. And once they press that button, it takes them to an interface like this. So very, very simple interface. And for each of the 3 certificates they need to upload, they can put in a start date, an expiration date. Every one of these certificates typically expires after a year. And then they can just click to upload any document here. And then repeat the process for each of their documents. Typically for one supplier, they may need to upload 7, 8, 9, 10 different certificates, and then do so every single year. So if I go back to this supplier interface, I can see all the certificates that this supplier has uploaded in the past. As an admin, I can view each certificate. I can view, I can reject. Let's look at a sample one here. If it's the wrong document, for example, I can reject it or approve it. Here we have a list of all the different types that our platform supports. Now we do some nice things in the background. When someone uploads a document, we use OCR and a bit of machine learning to pull out as much text as we can, including things like expiration date, so that we have that information automatically. We use proactive notifications. So 30 days before one of these documents is going to expire, the supplier gets a reminder email to upload new versions of that as well. And we leverage technologies such as IPFS. IPFS, one of the advantages is that once a document has been uploaded to the platform, it's cryptographically impossible to edit that document in any way. Even if you change 1 pixel, it can't be done. So we do that. It's another layer of data assurance that all the documents that have been uploaded haven't been edited at any point. So now I'm going to log out of the admin view, and I'm going to log in as a supplier. So if a supplier gets an email that says, we require some documents, they can log in themselves and self-manage this process. So once a supplier logs in, the first thing they see is this interface. This gives them an opportunity to update their contact information, their phone number. Typically, a supplier has to provide the products that they offer. And finally, as part of the Safe Foods for Canadians Act, they need to answer a number of different verification questions. So they can go through that process here and click yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, unsure. So once they've completed that data, which again is all stored on the blockchain, they're taken to this interface where they can see all the certificates they've ever uploaded, and they can also see any new certificates that are required. So here we can see some action is required. There are 3 documents that need to be uploaded. they can click that. And again, it takes them to this similar interface where they can go ahead and upload the documents that are required. Good, so that's a very quick look at the admin side of the Food Certs platform, as well as the supplier side. And with that, I'll pass it back to Carl. Thank you, Carl. Or thank you, Carl, please proceed. And I think you're muted, actually.
There we go. So let me just share my screen again. Let me know if you can see the presentation. So I'd just like to invite Ray then a couple of parting comments on the success of this, and maybe we can leave the questions to the end, but I know we're getting some great questions from the audience. So Ray, can you just give us some quick insights on what you saw, the benefits thus far from the Food Cert solution?
Well, one of the main benefits was, well, the saving of just resources, because we didn't even have that many resources because a lot of people started retiring, and then we had one person covering this area, and everything was on paper, getting lost, hard to find, and just digitizing all the certificates was a huge gain. And actually, right when COVID hit, the US border actually needed us to provide a lot of these certificates to prove that we were purchasing from US vendors. And so we were able to provide that list within 5 minutes and just drop the list, pull the spreadsheet and send it right to the vendors and give them all the images at the same time of the certificates showing that they were valid vendors, which got our trucks moving a lot quicker than us having to photocopy each one of these papers and going through that whole process. You can imagine how time consuming that could be, right? And the focus on traceability, it's going to help us with recalls in the future. Like, let's say we have leafy green or salad that came in on a lot, and we have it traced right to a farm, and we know exactly which retail it went to. We don't have to waste as much food. Like, that's a key thing that we're looking at right now. So, but we're going to be talking about traceability a little bit later, so I'm going to leave a lot of that for now. But one of the biggest ones was the time saving.
Yeah, so Ray, can you just walk us through some of the new or the exciting opportunities that you're working on at FCL?
Yeah, for sure. So Farm to Fork is one of our next initiatives that we're looking at, and we're looking at working with Morpheus. And this Farm to Fork initiative is basically going to be able to track our whole purchase order process from our warehouse all the way through to our supplier, and then through our whole logistics system to retail. So we can actually track where the truck is going, and we're going to track where the whole purchase order is coming from warehouse all the way to retail. And hyperlocal is kind of different with Federated Co-op, because all our local co-ops can purchase from anyone. They don't have to purchase from Federated Co-op. They can purchase from a honey farmer down the street and say, like, we need 10 jars of honey. Can we have that in our store? And then they just pay the through the back door, and they're good to go. So some of these co-ops actually have over 600 plus of these hyperlocal products and provide quite a bit of money. So we have to find a way to track this information and capture it for them, and actually make it simpler for the retails to get this information out. Because let's say there's other local co-ops that want to do the same thing and purchase from those farms or vendors. It'll allow a lot more visibility into products that are available across different co-ops at that point, and then help out the vendors at the same time. And then with this solution, we're going to be building out a vendor hub, FCL hub, and retail hub. And what that means is each one of these hubs is going to give us different visibility into different parts of the supply chain. Like, if you're a vendor, you're going to be able to see all the purchase orders that are coming to you and when they're fulfilled and so on, and certificates and anything else that's crucial to a supplier. And then the FCL hub will have an overview of pretty much everything that's going on throughout Federated. So what's going to the vendors, what's going to the retails, and so on. And then the retail will be able to see their invoices, their bill of ladings, if there's a delayed truck so they can actually plan it properly. Because today we have some issues where if we have some routing that's wrong from the vendors, the retails don't know about it until 3 days later when they don't get their products. So now we can actually let them know sooner that, hey, you missed the cutoff. You're not getting your product until tomorrow, or so on. So it's going to just add a lot more visibility. And then we've even talked a little bit about IoT tracking and stuff like that, but that would be a future improvement. Next slide.
Okay, Ray, I think thanks for that explanation. I think the next section of the presentation, and we're almost at the end of the content, really talks through that farm to fork and hyperlocal. So I know, Eric, at the beginning you were saying that your organization is becoming international. Obviously, what we saw recently in the presentation was around safe food for Canadians. It's critical that we're creating these societal benefits across the board. And I'd say not just for Canada. So, following from your internationalization, the US has a Food Modernization Safety Act. In Europe, there's very similar legislation. So anyone from international can see how you could apply food safety, farm to fork, and then this concept of hyperlocal to your particular country. So what I want to do is just walk through these slides very quickly on what farm to fork information flows look like. And then we can give you a quick demo of how we'll see that implemented in our platform. So typically you'll see on the screen, we have a warehouse. The warehouse is creating orders. The orders go to suppliers. All of that supplier management is done on the FCL mainframe. All of the order management is already done with a solution that's fully automated in FCL. So that part of the process is running perfectly as is today. Some of the benefits then from farm to fork are, how do we create that supply chain visibility from the purchase order all the way through to a proof of delivery in a warehouse or even in a retail store. So that's one of the key elements I'll show in this demo. The second is, how do we then enable some of these, I would say, compelling consumer experiences using a QR code so that consumers can understand where their product was sourced from. Was it sustainable? Have they employed good farming practice, good employment practices? Again, what we're seeing across the board in supply chain is this move towards sustainability. And that's what really I'm going to be showing you in this presentation then. So the first part of this is around the supply chain visibility piece. So our platform has 3 key components for supply chain traceability and visibility. A powerful workflow engine, and what that does is digitize shipments from purchase orders, as Ray said, the lettuce provider and the apple producer, for example, and they're being shipped then into the warehouses at FCL, all the way through to proof of delivery. The second key pillar then is what we call a shipment portal. That has that one version of truth. You can see all your shipments, the hub concept that Ray was talking about, from the retail perspective, from the supplier perspective, from a supply chain perspective. And you can see all the different events happening with those different shipments. And finally, we tie that together with blockchain with, what we call our digital footprint. I think everyone has an experience with Amazon. You buy, you track it, it arrives. And in supply chain, specifically in agrofood, but international agrofood, and more complex still, is that it's very difficult to tie all those different stakeholders on one platform. And that's really where storing once on blockchain and sharing that data to different stakeholders makes sense. So that's our digital footprint. So I'm just going to quickly demo that. So just bear with me while I drop into this presentation. And what I'll do right now is hide the panels and then just show you quickly what that looks like. So this is part of our portal. You can see here we're logged on as the FCL logistics manager in the portal. And on the right-hand side, I have a series of menu options from shipment visibility, tracking inventory in the supply chain, any documents like the certs that Noam showed us in food certs, and any specific supply chain documents like certificates of origin, bills of lading, any kind of food safety documentation, anything around standards like ISO 22400 BRC. It's all captured in our document tab. Ray mentioned briefly IoT events, so cold chain, critical for fresh fruit and veg and many protein categories. And finally, our brand protection. So what you can see on this screen, it's the shipment visibility, where I can see all the different orders and workflows coming in. Okay, the purchase order number, the invoice date, the country that it's going to, what was the company that was sourcing that, and then obviously what was the current activity of the workflow, any documents were uploaded, any IoT events, okay, the current status, a progress against plan, and then days in process. And this traffic light concept really focuses the user around areas of opportunity. You've heard across the board that supply chain in the last 18, 21 months is complex, right? You've got container congestion, you've got truck delays because of trucks blocking different highways or border crossings. You've got the Suez Canal crisis. ETA today is a broken metric, and what we try to provide for our customers is a better proxy for ETA. When's my product going to arrive? Now, if I looked at a particular shipment, I could navigate in here and look at the documents attached to that shipment. So I click there, and you can see there should be a list of documents, from, in this case, the Safe Food for Canadian documents, the same documents that Noam was showing from Food Certs, my leafy green documents, all the way through those typical kind of ESG certs, okay? Anything around ISO, for example, ISO 22000, test certificates, and through to proof of delivery. So again, we store all this on blockchain. We use that great technology in this case for managing blockchain documents called IPFS that Noam mentioned. And we also provide a supervisor role to curate that document. So let me look for a better example. Very similar to Food Cert. So before I add this to the blockchain, I'm going to have a supervisor validate this and then ensure it's the right document before we put it on the blockchain. And why does that happen? Just as Ray said, when you've got the wrong documents, you do get stopped at border crossings, regulatory authorities, such as customs, such as food inspections. They will stop your products, which means delays, demurrage, and more costs, really. If you're shipping agro products, you might have a real damage on your shelf life. So obviously, anything around document management is critical in what we do. But we also manage the IoT side. So again, let me just click into IoT here. You can see we've got a couple of shipments with IoT trackers, again, critical for cold chain. And what you're seeing here, let me just maximize this map out a little bit bigger, is a shipment, I think, of a producer from Mexico that was starting out in Guadalajara. And we've got all the temperature, humidity, any catastrophic shock or shock events, all the way through to delivery in Calgary. And again, we add that data to blockchain to make sure we can action it. We can create geofences with it. We can create notifications. So again, you're not calling any of your providers. You're just proactively monitoring the cold chain to making sure that product arrives on time and in great condition. Okay, and that's an important consumer play and a food safety play. Other key parts of the platform include this inventory tracking. So if you bring together purchase order data and the supply chain, you'll be able to see all the inventory in the supply chain. And that's critical today. Again, probably 2 years ago, the supply chains were running in general pretty much, normal, and you didn't have all these ETA changes. Again, so we use this red background here to flag any ETA delays that could cause damage to the product or consumer unhappiness because they don't have their favorite product in the retail store. So that's the consumer side on the in this case the inventory tracking. I think documents and IoT we've already looked at. If I click into the documents here, again, similar philosophy. Any documents that weren't uploaded on time, we're going to flag with a red traffic light. Again, bringing the user very quickly to areas of attention. Okay, and I'll come on to the brand protection right now. So moving back to the deck very quickly, and I'm careful of the time here. So we've covered off the supply chain traceability. What about consumer traceability? Again, a key part of what we're trying to do when implementing these global standards. So with FCL, we've been developing this concept of local and traceability. And what we've done then is the ability to tag item or case level or pallet level products. So this is really a simple QR code. So if you're in Canada, you can get your phone out. It's basically put your camera app over the phone and then you're going to start interacting with our platform. So imagine you're a retail store, you're checking on the shelf, or you've got the product at home and you want to understand the brand experience. So what do we do here? Well, first we're implementing GS1 standards and using technologies and standards available in MyGFSI. That helps us geocode and describe those item level tracking. The second thing we do is we've got some proprietary business rules that allows us to avoid any of these gray market, counterfeit, or stolen products. And we can flag all those and check for those on our platform. You can see this product, it's going for Canada, but it shouldn't be available in any country other than Canada. So if you're outside, in this case, Canada, you're probably going to get a warning on this scan. But if you're in Canada, it's going to start to enable that compelling brand content that I talked about. And that really then is like, it could be anything to do with the backstory of the brand, the sustainability angle, how they're employing sustainable farming practices and a sustainable supply chain. Okay. So I just want to really wrap up quickly then. I've got 3 minutes, I think, or 2 minutes on farm to fork. So that's the supply chain supply chain piece. Here we're looking at the ordering piece. So, again, trying to enable, as Ray said, those those local producers is critical on building a circular supply chain. Okay, so again, I can show you this very quickly. We've built some simple technology that allows the stores actually to go and search for suppliers. So again, let me just demo that very quickly. So here you see that top screen, and I can have a look for different suppliers. So let me look for organic first. So this is running some queries against our database. And again, we're using our maps to simply show, what suppliers are available for that particular category or tag of products, right? And the different suppliers it come from. But let me go and then look for hyper. So this is actually then going to allow me to find the stores that are really close to us. Again, one of the things that Ray was talking about, one of the key objectives for FCL with the FCL stores, with the Federated Co-op stores, is to incentivize this whole local ecosystem. So here you can see very quickly then, which are the companies that are close by, what products do they stock, what's the sales to that, the sales to that particular location, and then what's the rating, how's that doing from a consumer perspective. And then if I click here, I can create actually orders. So again, what we're trying to do is tie together the process of searching for suppliers and then order creation automatically. And all I'd need to do here then is to fill out the number of orders and then send that to the supplier. So that's one of the key elements that we have with our local, or hyper-local supplier, onboarding and searching and order creation. And then we can track that through the supply chain in a very similar way as we saw previously. So here's the order process. And then obviously we're going to kind of tie up now quickly with, why blockchain. So I'll pass it back to you, Noam, and then we'll go to questions.
Great, awesome. Thanks once again, Carl. I will share my screen. I'll talk about blockchain. And then I see in Zoom, there are some great, there's 5 or 6 fantastic questions. So I'll try and run through those as well. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, fantastic. So you should be able to see my screen again. Oops. So a few keynotes on blockchain here. We call our platform a middleware platform, and we connect to over 100 different third-party systems and data sources. And we integrate using a number of different technologies, REST API, Graph, even Excel files or CSV. It really doesn't matter to us. We can pull in any data. Our primary blockchain is Ethereum, and we use Ethereum sidechains as well to address performance issues and cost issues. But from day one, we designed our platform to be blockchain agnostic. We always had the theory that a blockchain such as Ethereum, could disappear tomorrow, could happen. But that's okay. If something like Ethereum did disappear one day, we have full compatibility with Hyperledger, EOS, Polygon, and Different blockchains, of course, can be run in different modes. Some companies prefer a private permission blockchain, such as Hyperledger, or want to use something more open, such as Ethereum. For us, from our perspective, it doesn't matter. We can support any blockchain. Oops. So yeah, as I mentioned, one key area we use blockchain is for the immutable properties of blockchain. I mentioned how when we upload, say, a document, we have full confidence that no data has been altered or edited. And I saw in the Zoom chat, there were a few questions about that, and I'll dive into that momentarily. So our digital footprint, I think I forgot to show that on my quick demo there. But for every single supplier, we create what you should see on the right side of my screen. We create one document that has a list of all their activities. So it links to every single document they've ever uploaded, the expiration dates, when it was uploaded, and all their activity. And we call this a digital footprint, or a single source of truth related to that supplier. And of course, this is all backed by a blockchain to give the data some additional trustworthiness. Now we're doing some very interesting things in this year, 2022, related to increasing that data assurance. Two things I'll mention. One is we're introducing Morpheus.Network data assurance layer. And this is a system of nodes that runs parallel to our main system. It's decentralized, meaning that anyone can participate in this system. And what this does is it connects to the same data sources that our platform connects to, but it does it in a decentralized way. And what it does is it confirms that the data our platform stores is the same data that we're pulling in from third-party systems. And that's one way we're increasing the trustworthiness of the data. If, for example, our platform incorrectly stores some data, if there's a bug in our software or we made an error, that independent system of nodes will quickly identify that there's an issue with the data. The other interesting thing I wanted to mention is Baseline Protocol. So we're an early sponsor of Baseline. We're on the governing board member. We're a governing board member of the Baseline Protocol. Very simply, Baseline is a way to ensure that two systems of record, in this case our platform, contains the exact same data as a third-party system, which could be an SAP system, or even an IoT vendor. And this uses the Ethereum mainnet, but uses things such as zero-knowledge proof to ensure that no sensitive data is ever moved or shared on a public blockchain. And so this is another exciting thing that we're working on for 2022, and expanding our Baseline integration to add an additional layer of trust onto our data. I want to pop into the chat. I believe we have 10 minutes, but let me pop into the chat because there were some great questions here.
Yeah, so I think the first question was, is this a platform or database, or is it on blockchain? Mm-hmm. That's from Deborah. Thank you, Deborah.
I see one before that. Hopefully I'll get to Deborah in a moment. The first one I see, sorry, is from Banu. Banu, thank you so much for the question. So the question is, this could have been implemented using other technologies, such as an ERP or another web-based solution, or using EDI. Yeah, I think a lot of blockchain solutions get that question, like, why blockchain? Why not something else? We believe that blockchain is just another tool in our digital tool belt. We don't look to jam blockchain into every single use case. However, blockchain does introduce a number of very interesting approaches. And I mentioned two of those, our independent node system, as well as Baseline. You mentioned EDI. If you have experience with EDI, I'm sure you know it requires a heavy upfront investment and heavy maintenance. Baseline Protocol, if you take a look at that, it uses the public Ethereum network, and it's a much more better alternative to EDI. It's very easy to get up and running. you use the always on, always available, rock solid Ethereum network that I don't think has really ever gone down. So why blockchain and why not EDI? Technically, we could have done this without blockchain. We could have done this without, you know, a number of different technologies, but we use it as adding one additional layer of trust to our data. John had
I think you're looking at the chat box, Noam, and there's actually another one, which is the Q&A questions, but let's run through both.
Oh, okay. My apologies there. John had a great question. He asked about the performance of blockchains, such as the per transaction cost. So yeah, blockchains do typically have a per transaction cost and may have performance issues. Two things we're doing there. One is we use our own side chains, layer 2 technologies. The main advantage there is that there's no gas fees and also no performance fees or no performance issues, or at least it's much faster, higher TPS than say the main blockchain. So typically we use our own private sidechain, but then we do one summary hash at the end of the process to the main chain.
Yeah, and then we got some great questions, I think, from Deborah, which are in the chat and the Q&A. So is this a database or a blockchain? And then we know which blockchain are they using. I guess she refers to FCL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, great questions here. As I mentioned, our primary blockchain is Ethereum, but we are data agnostic and blockchain agnostic. We're cloud agnostic as well. We currently run in Google Cloud as well as Azure and
AWS.
And AWS, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And also, no, I think it's worth just reiterating the blockchain we use for documents. I mean, we really like IPFS for storing documents once, avoiding those multiple storage and compute costs like email and that poor versioning. And again, that's what we, that's critical. And I think it's how we use blockchain across all our platform.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And we also understand that a lot of these technologies are quite new. In terms of our documents, yes, we store everything on IPFS, but we also store a duplicate copy in AWS S3. So again, in the future, if there's any performance issues with IPFS, anything at all, it's fine. We have a backup on S3 that we can switch with a click of the button.
Deborah has another call, which is, do they have a cell phone app? So that's probably Ray. We can bring Ray in. I know right now we were showing our solution with the QR code, and that's actually, in terms of technology, just runs in the browser. It's a HTML5 kind of solution. And the reason we do that is we don't want to have the effort of actually having to download the app to actually start transacting with our platform. We've got a concept called intelligent QRs, which allows us to surface different business rules and different parts of our solution at different stages of the supply chain experience or supply chain process. Maybe once we've got more experience on FCL, we will go to a native app because we can create maybe a more compelling experience for the consumers. But Ray, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, it's basically depends how we want to brand it. Right? Co-op does have an app, or FCL has an app for the co-ops, and web-based, so you could just open up a mobile browser and off you go, right? Yeah. I do think if everything works out as planned, we will need to include it in our app, but as of right now, no.
Okay, thanks for that. Jennifer has a great question around IoT and the accuracy of IoT data. Maybe I can just go through some feedback on that. So yeah, cold chain and IoT data is critical. So if you look at food, food is really maybe 5 years behind what's happening in the pharma industry. There was some significant pharma legislation in the US probably about 10 years ago, and the tolerances in IoT there are a lot tighter. So it's like less than 0.5 degrees Celsius. When you're looking at food, it could be a slightly wider band. So what we're looking at is working with different device providers. So we've got some great solutions for cold chain already deployed to hundreds of thousands of different trucks or shipments or data points in the cold chain. And we allow them to do all the certification of the devices. We're completely device agnostic, but we then do bring the data into our platform in order to create geofences, to create those notifications that I showed, to really give users critical information about what's happening to their load, if it's been handled correctly from a geoposition and a product protection perspective. Just some other quick comments on the IoT side. It's not just one data point that you need to look at with cold chain, and you need to average out a series of data points over a period of time. So let's say a bottle of beer doesn't go off the first time it goes over 10 degrees, right? Or 20 degrees. If it's kept outside over a period of time and the average ambient temperature is over 20 degrees for let's say a day, that bottle of beer loses 25% of its shelf life potential. So averaging data points is becoming really important as well in cold chain. So I hope I answered those questions. Alejandro had a quick question on what is your opinion, or gives best value? What is the best and gives added value as a game changer for blockchain instead of a different technology? Maybe need a bit of help to understand that question. So is it really a question around what's our opinion around blockchain as a game-changing technology? Again, Noam, Ray, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I can start, I guess. Like, I was thinking more performance and accessibility and just the ability to share across different areas, but Noam might have a more technical view there. But
I missed the question, to be honest. I was reading some other questions in the chat, so I missed the original question. Sorry, if you can repeat it, Carl or Ray.
So why do we think that blockchain is a game-changing technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a number of reasons. I think we touched upon some of those. I think, it is a new technology, relatively new technology. I think, when you're evaluating blockchain, you can't just evaluate how it looks today. I think as a technology, it's going to rapidly advance. Blockchains in 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to look very, very different. But overall, I think that blockchain can enhance the trust in data. And I think that's really one of the key things moving forward. As I mentioned, baseline, I think blockchains will be one of the primary ways that enterprises and organizations communicate, whether it's a public chain or private chain or permission chain. So I think the use of blockchain is going to grow. As I mentioned, we don't try and jam it into every single use case, but I think that our platform and our company is positioned very well to take advantage of new innovations in the blockchain space. And I did want to just address one thing, a great question that I think John answered. He talked about garbage in, garbage out, which is a classic problem with any kind of computer system. How do we ensure that the data that people enter into the system is valid? And it is true, like, we rely on the source of data. So if the source of data is incorrect, we're going to pull that in. One thing we do on our platform is that a supplier, if they add some data, such as a DRC membership number, what our platform does is we automatically connect directly to the source. In this case, the DRC official membership list. We automatically connect to it and in real time validate that that membership number they entered is the same membership number stored on the DRC website. So if they made an error, we can immediately reject that membership number, and they get a new email to ask them to fix the issue. Before we had this food search solution, FCL, perhaps, it could take weeks or months before they notice that the membership number is incorrect. So it's a lot of the automatic integrations we've talked about does help ensure data is accurate as much as possible.
Can I add a little bit there, Noam? Actually, because like right now there's some certificates that are just images right now, and we have to validate that the dates are correct. So that's a manual process today, but we've talked about adding OCR technology to kind of validate those certificates and validate that the dates are correct, validate that it's a proper organic certificate and so on. We're just waiting till we have enough data in our system to be able to start managing that. And that would automate that whole process, saving us even more time of manual labor. So I just thought I'd touch base on that because that will help keep our data clean.
Yep, thanks for that, Ray. Eric, I think we're right on the hour. So I don't know if it's time to pass it back to you for a quick ending comments.
It is, and thank you very much, gang, for this great presentation. Immediately saw the value from a consumer perspective, from a company perspective, from a partner's perspective, right? And I think we did touch on why blockchain beyond other technologies, because yeah, we have EDI, and I always joke that EDI is a 70-year-old technology. I think we're onto something else. We need to move beyond the EDI, and it's still a very linear technology too, very much used. But blockchain, more than anything else, brings a level of trust between partners where sometimes trust does not exist from a data perspective, and breaks down the data silos. I mean, we all have our data silos. Ray, you talked about your system and the local guy system and the carrier system. Blockchain can be the glue between all these different disparate systems, no matter what those systems are, right? So that I think is where blockchain brings in a lot of value. Great questions. I hope that we addressed most of them. Thank you very much to Noam, to Ray, to Carl for this fantastic presentation. We did record the session today. We will send it out. We'll post that on our YouTube channel shortly. If you have other questions in that email when everything's ready, we'll give contact names. If you want to reach out to the folks at Morpheus, feel free to reach out. So they'll be happy to answer more of your questions or entertain your thoughts and projects. And again, stay tuned for our next presentation. We have one coming up, I think, at the end of March. And again, thank you very much for your time today, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.